of inertia and gravity. Inertia has no effect whatsoever on the crew and anything inside the craft. David Froning, Advanced Systems Division, McDonnell Douglas, 1993. So these little tidbits, you know, little bits here, a quote there, a comment from this scientist there, it all begins to add up. Okay. Now we get to another aerospace scientist, an engineer, by the name of Ben Rich. Now, Ben Rich was the director of the Skunk Works for Lockheed Martin for about 30 years. Lockheed Martin is one of the aerospace companies that is way the hell ahead of mainstream establishment science. Ben Rich said before he died in 1995, he said, most of what you have seen on Star Trek is actually quite commonplace. Classified aerospace science is at least 100 years beyond establishment mainstream science. And then he jokingly said, we can now take E.T. home. Now this was about the time the movie, all of you remember the movie. That little dude run wobbling around there. He wanted to go home, Ben Rich says, we can now take E.T. home. He said, if you've seen it on Star Trek, we have it. We can do it. He went on to say, I wish I could tell you about the projects we are currently working on. They are both fascinating and fantastic. They call for technologies once only dreamed of by science fiction writers. Let's put it this way. If we have things flying in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas drool. Now, you remember George Lucas was one of the primary directors of Star Wars. Now, Ben went on to further say, before he died, we already have the means to travel among the stars. But these technologies are so locked up in black programs that it would take an act of God to even get them out to benefit humanity. Now, guys, that's the state of the situation. That's the mess we find ourselves in. We got a government. Thank you, honey. We have a shadow government. We are members of a trust. We have good friends in high places that are moving in our midst. And I jokingly say, and it's not a pun, we have good friends in high places. Now, not all of them out there like us very much. Because, guys, en masse, we're not very likable. We are a primitive, savage, and dangerous goddamn bunch of animals. We still go to war, and we butcher and kill each other by the thousands and the millions. It's no wonder we're under quarantine. Damn it, we ought to be under quarantine. We are not ready to go out there. And they're damn well making sure that we don't get out there en masse where we can mess things up and cause trouble. But we are being allowed to make little baby steps. We are making little tiny steps out there. Our technology that Ben Rich talked about, the accomplishments that David Froning talked about that we've had for over 30 years. We have technology, but it's not being released to the masses of people. It's not being released for your benefit. And whenever it will be released, I have no idea. I know this, that we're being monitored by intelligent, advanced, thinking creatures that are watching us carefully and not letting us screw up the mess completely. But, as I said, I will not live to see it. Many of you will. And when it all begins to come out, and remember that this old coot standing on the stage this afternoon in Southern California reminded you of who you are, and what you're capable of. Now, a lovely young lady tells me I'm running out of time. I'd like to kind of summarize, if I can, a little bit. I've touched upon a number of things. I've told you you're not alone, you've never been alone. I've told you you're living under a trust. I told you there are good friends in high places, that there are people out there, advanced intelligences who do care about you. There are others who don't much care about you at all. I've been told flatly to my face that there are at least a dozen guys, different places coming and going, different portals through dimensions, different planets, different star systems, different galaxies. I was told flatly that the Galactic Federation does exist and the headquarters is not even in our galaxy. And eventually, ultimately, hopefully, the human race will mature and it'll be able to go out there and take its rightful place in the stars, where we belong. Now, before I close up here, I have a couple of photographs to share with you, which I want to say to you, express, in my view, why you aren't going to be told the whole truth. Would you bring up the first picture, please, honey? Ah! Okay, honey. This is an Apollo 13 photograph taken as Apollo 13 was on its way to the moon, I think in 1970. 69 was when Apollo 11 went to the moon. Apollo 13, as you know from their history, never made it to the moon. It got around the moon, was able to come home. Only by the skin of their teeth were they able to come home safely. But when they're on their way to the moon, 1970, Apollo 13, they ran into some things out there that they may not have expected. This is a photograph. This is AS-13, that's roll 25, negative number 9. They found that when they're on their way to the moon, they weren't alone. There was some heavy traffic out there. And not only was it heavy traffic, but they were big things out there. I mean, gigantic ships out there. Now, here these guys are in this little tiny capsule, 3 of them crammed in there, side by side, in this little tiny capsule on the way to the moon. And they get out there. Here's the moon, by the way. What is this? Circular disk with a dome on top, about 1,000 feet across. Here's another big one. But who's coming in from the side here? Oh, this is a big mother. Here's the positive and here's the negative. And in this negative, you can see a little bit of the detail. Guys, this mother is 5 miles long. And they ran into it on the way to the moon, Apollo 13. As I said, they're crammed in this little tiny capsule on their way, you know, elbow and face, you know. You've seen the pictures. Because they get out there and they run into this stuff. And here's this big mother that's up, with estimate 5 miles long. Could have been a little more, could have been a little less, but it's a big mother. Next picture here. Okay. Now this big mother has moved into the center of the frame. Here's the moon again. Here's these other large objects. But here's this big mama. And I've often thought to myself, I've been on an aircraft carrier or two because my son is a retired Navy captain. Spent 30 years in the Navy. I've been on several of the Nimitz-class carriers. And these guys, these things are dynamite. I mean, 1,000 feet long. They have a crew of over 5,000 men. If you've ever been on an aircraft carrier, a Nimitz class, it is absolutely awe-inspiring. And I used to joke with my son before he retired. On a Nimitz class carrier, they have a snack bar, they have a squash court, they have all this, they have all that. They have a crew of over 5,000 men. Can you imagine what's going on something like this? Theaters, parks, you know, movies, bowling alleys, for God's sake. I've been flat told to my face that one of their favorite pastimes is watching human television. For their entertainment, they find watching our TV hilarious. You know, have you ever watched TV to find out what the hell's going on? You ever watched Dancing with the Stars? Oh my God. Anyhow, here's a big mother, Apollo 13, 1970. Now, this has never been released by NASA. I wonder why. Next picture. Okay. In 1980, NASA, there's that word again. Sometimes when I say NASA, I feel like Richard Hoagland. I feel like spitting, you know. As Richard says, it stands for never a straight answer. Well, anyhow, NASA has got some damn fine people in it, and it always has. But the policymakers, the guys in the administrative section who run the program, are a bunch of damn liars, and they cannot be trusted. But wait a moment, I just described the United States government, didn't I? They're a bunch of damn liars, and they can't be trusted either. Anyhow, in 1980, NASA, some of the fine engineers and scientists, had discovered something strange going on in the rings of Saturn. They had taken pictures with telescopes and all, and they had found out that something was going on out there. So when Voyager was launched in 1980 on that journey, which it's still on, it's way the hell out there, going to the stars, it went through the rings of Saturn and it took a series of photographs. And a retired NASA scientist by the name of Norman Berggren retired in 1980, or right after that, and he expected NASA to release some of the photographs that Voyager took on its way to the stars as it passed through the rings of Saturn. Well, Norman waited and waited and waited, and NASA didn't release a damn thing, and Norman finally, out of exasperation and anger, had brought some of those photos with him when he retired. Norman Berggren wrote a book called The Ringmakers of Saturn. He couldn't get it published in the United States. I wonder why. He finally had to go to Aberdeen, Scotland to get his book published, and he finally was able to get it published. And in Aberdeen, they published The Ringmakers of Saturn, and the book became dynamite. NASA has never said a word about the photographs taken by Voyager in 1980. This is one of them. Here's one of the rings. Guys, this is a self-luminous, artificially constructed, obviously under intelligent control, object. NASA, Norman tells me, actually called them electromagnetic vehicles. This thing, guys, is the size of our moon. Now, our moon is 2,160 miles in diameter. Our moon, 2,160 miles in diameter. This thing is the size of our moon, artificial, self-luminous, moving all over the ring.